I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions. Once again, his third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
What's up, everyone? Happy Merry Christmas Eve here on SportsGrid. That's right, we are coming at you on the day before Christmas Eve, 2 days out from Christmas, with a very special edition of Pro Football Today, with just a dumpster fire of a game to wrap up Week 16, isn't it? But it's not that there's nothing on the line. Dave Sharapan, Tom Vecchio, I am Adam Kaufman. The Packers, who are 14 to 14.5 point favorites, depending on where you look, a total tonight of 43.5, by the way. If the Packers do win, as everybody and their mother expects, they do clinch a playoff spot. Green Bay comes into this one sitting at 10-4, believe it or not, toward the bottom of a very crowded, very talented, very deep contingent of NFC playoff teams, whereas the Saints absolutely blow, which is why there is just not a whole hell of a lot from this game to really know in a concrete way, to feel with conviction, which is why, again, we celebrate the holiday all dressed up. I'm dressed up. Dave is dressed up. I saw that hat, Sharapan, Vecchio. He didn't get the memo. I've been accused, guys, of going extra by some, really by one, Sharapan. So here you go, Dave. This is for you, pal. Light it up.
Love it.
Light it up tonight. That's right. Light it up. Another
That's
dumpster
that
fire
old
of a team.
Patriot, though? That's that new Patriot guy? I don't like that Patriot guy. I need to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
How
like
we
the
doing, Dave?
Elvis.
What do you expect from this game? Huh? Is Green Bay? Should we alt this up? Is Green Bay going to win this by 21 plus?
Yeah, I mean, you opened the show talking about people's mamas, and their mamas like the Packers and their kids like the Packers. The old guys like the Packers. Everybody likes the Packers. This is one of those ones where you're in the book and you're going, my goodness, just make this end already. Can we please get to Christmas already? Because the Chiefs are going to lose on Christmas. That's your first little look ahead, because we won't be here, but some of you will. The favorites went 11-4 over the weekend. Again, I got my friends in the books going, man, we had plans. We had trips to the Caribbean planned. We had other things planned. They're all gone. October was great. November, December, bad. There are so many things rolling to teasers tonight on Green Bay. -7, -8, whatever it is. Things rolling to the over. Things rolling to the money line. I mean, if you had to decide right now, I think as a book guy or whatever, you're hoping that the Saints just cover and the game doesn't fall anywhere near the teasers. Like a Saints lose like 24-20 tonight would be great, but that will require them going over their team total. Adam, Tom, can the Saints listen? Vecchio, you found gold many times throughout the season on this show. Tom Vecchio, is the Saints doing anything tonight? Do you have a Saint that you want to talk about, or why'd you do that? I guess not. No.
We're going to talk about two Saints in particular for me. And, Adam and I have been going back and forth, not just all day about this game, but, dating back to last night. We've been talking about this game. What are we going to be getting from the Saints? And it really comes down to Spencer Rattler and Kendre Miller coming out of the backfield. We're just seeing that Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Alvin Kamara, of course, are inactive for the Saints tonight. So it is going to be really, really tough. And once we start to dig into the props, Dave, as you'll see, when we look at some of the reception yards for these players, they're all the same, as you say, right? They're all the same. They're all a handful of yards apart. So it is really, really tough from the Saints side of things, trying to decide where the ball, or trying to determine where the ball is going to be going to. And on the Packers side of things, it's actually just equally as tough. And I've said this before about the Packers. We know what we're getting from Josh Jacobs, right? And that's close to 20 carries. His prop is sitting at 19.5 or 20, wherever it is. He's going to be pushing towards 90 yards. But then we actually look at their receivers. Their receivers are also kind of the same when it comes to the Packers. And from a real-life football perspective, that's great for the Packers. They have all these options, whether it's Tucker Kraft, who I'm particularly high on tonight, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Reed, Dontavian Wicks, you name it. A lot of their lines are actually very, very similar. So it actually makes it equally as tough for the Packers. We know that Josh Jacobs, we can etch that in stone, what we're getting from him. But outside of that, there's actually a lot to dig into. I know at face value, this is not an exciting game. It isn't. It's all Packers tonight. But it's actually really fun from a prop perspective, trying to nail down those one or two players.
I just don't understand, Dave, where the points, where the yards, where the production is coming from on the Saints side. Now, obviously, Rattler makes sense. I agree with Tom there, and I agree with him on Kendre Miller, who's actually looked pretty good when he's had an opportunity, absent Alvin Kamara, who is not playing. But again, there's no Kamara. Obviously, there's no Derek Carr. There's no Chris Olave. Tom mentioned there's no MVS. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is out. So I had to pull up the depth chart. I'm looking at the depth chart for the Saints. Okay, and here's what we have. You have Kendre Miller, obviously, Jamal Williams behind him. Cedric Wilson Jr., Kevin Austin Jr., I've never heard of him. Mason Tipton, Dante Pettis, Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau. These are your pass catchers for this Saints team. Like, as Tom said, we've been talking about this and even just trying to figure out how to put a builder together for this game. Because, on FanDuel, there's a live, you get it to even money. There's a live boost for builders, basically. So, all right, who do you have faith in if you were to include a Saint? And there's not a single guy on this team in terms of pass catchers that I can trust. Not one. I don't even know how Rattler, and I'm sure he will, but I don't even know how Rattler gets to 150, 175 passing yards, because who the F is catching the ball?
That's a great question. And I'm glad you said F and not the actual thing, because that would have got us in big trouble. We don't want to get in big trouble here. Yeah, we don't want that. We don't want any trouble. What we want to know is who he's throwing it to. And when you look at the names, we could have done a segment where you could have said anyone's name and said, is this a guy that's dressing for the Saints tonight? And I would have been like, yes, maybe, I don't know. Because I did the same thing you did when I looked at it this afternoon and I went, wait a second. Who is this guy? Who is this guy? I don't know. The books don't know. This is one of those situations where nobody knows. Squadouche applies to everybody. Bettors, books, the numbers are the same. Vecchio, you said it. We put them up, see where it falls. Now, this happened to us on Thursday last week, and we talked about this being an under game with, the Chargers and the Broncos. And all of a sudden, there were big plays. There were chunk plays, gash yardage, tale of two halves, and it went sideways. Tom, is there any chance that this resembles anything like that? Like we actually get production and this game goes over the total?
We're going to get production from the Packers. Their offense is absolutely cooking right now, nearly 30 points in every single one of these recent games. So they will be scoring tonight. If the Saints can eke their way to 13 points or so, like I don't think that's out of the question for the Saints. And then we see the Packers rack up 30 points. Like we're going to be at that total number. I would say 80% of the production from the Packers side of things, right? 13 points is a realistic amount from the Saints. I think we'd all agree with that, maybe 10. But them dropping 30-plus points on them, I think, is very much on the table tonight, considering what they've done over these past few weeks. So I'm ready to dive into this. Like, I'm trying to stay optimistic about tonight's game.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that a game is happening, that it exists,
Yeah,
that it will be played, it will be on my television. That much I know. I told you this right off the top of the show. With a win, as everyone expects, Green Bay will clinch a playoff spot. What I did not mention, and we can get into this on the other side, is the forecast is calling for a mix of snow and rain at Lambeau. Just how ugly could this thing get? We'll return on Pro Football.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Pro Football Today here on the grid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Thanks for watching, or if you are listening across Sirius XM channel 159, we greatly appreciate it. Getting you ready for the Packers, the heavily favored Packers against the Saints tonight at Lambeau with Sharapan and Vecchio. So, guys, Packers, again, massive favorites, 14-14.5. Davis talked about how it would be just all the wonderful things in the world for the holiday season if the Saints, even if they don't win, obviously, can just finish within that 14 or even ideally within like 7, and just destroy teasers and all of that. I get it. I get it. But the Packers, how about this? If you're into trends, you know I am if you watch and listen to this. Packers are 27-8 straight up, 20-13-2 against the spread at Lambeau Field between weeks 15 and 18, dating back to the year 2000. So that is 60% against the spread. Now, why do I bring that up? Because generally speaking, this time of year, December, the weather stinks in Green Bay, obviously. And so that is what we are potentially dealing with tonight. I mentioned it just going into the break, the forecast calling for a mix of snow and rain, Tom, in this game. What does that mean for the production there on the field? For instance, we already believe, and we'll talk more in depth about him later, that Aaron Jones is going to have a great game. But, or Josh Jacobs, pardon me, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that constantly. That Josh Jacobs is going to have a great game. But can we believe equally in Kendre Miller, just given the volume he should get with no Alvin Kamara?
That's the conversation I think a lot of people are having it, and we've gone back and forth, like I said, all day about this. Like, what are we actually expecting from Kendre Miller? And I would think it's maybe even compounded. Like, MVS is now out tonight. Like, they have no legitimately good pass catching options. Let's just call it what it is. So at a certain point, do we think the Packers defense is good? Yes. But if Kendre Miller is going to see 15 plus total touches in the rushing plus passing game, he's going to get to 50 yards or 60 yards, whatever it might be. Is it going to be super efficient, or is it going to be pretty? Will some of it happen in garbage time? Probably, no, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be efficient, but it will happen in garbage time just because someone has to catch the ball, right? And that's what we should be expecting. So, we discussed earlier today, like, do we trust any of these receivers? No, at the end of the day, we should just be trusting Spencer Rattler. So I think we can start with Kendre Miller, then we can move to Rattler as the number 1 and the number 2 options from the Saints. But outside of that, I have no interest. I have no exposure to any Saints player outside of Miller and Rattler today.
So real quick then, if you're looking for a straight play, does going over on Kendre Miller's receptions 2.5, does that make sense? Simply because, generally we'd be looking at Kamara for that, and it would be a bigger number, obviously. It'd be like 3.5 or 4.5, maybe even 5.5. At 2.5 for Miller, does that feel like good value?
I think it does. I think it's, again, especially if the Packers are bringing the rush, right? They're bringing the rush. They're up late. They have a chance to just pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. I don't see a reason why Spencer Rattler won't be dropping the ball down quickly to Miller. It's not like every time it's going to go to Foster Moreau or Jawan Johnson. So sign me up for Miller tonight. Rushing plus receiving is absolutely the safest way to go about it.
Dave, how do you see it?
I don't know. I don't know if you want to get more involved or like really shrink your options in a game like this, especially when you're talking Saints stuff. So I'm going through right now the game specials. Boys, we've talked about this one before. It's been in Like It, Love It, or Leave It. It's been in sometimes in the same game parlays, which is coming up next. Each team to score 1 rushing touchdown and 1 passing touchdown in each half. Okay?
Well, I have not seen a number in this game.
I have not seen a number this big on one of these props in a long time. I don't even know how the system puts this many zeros. They just moved it while we were talking. It's 320 to 1. It says 32, and there are 4 zeros in the prop. I've never seen something that big before, where you got to put it in and then do the math to figure out what you're going to get paid. Them scoring touchdowns is one thing. I don't think there's going to be a lot of them, at least for the Saints. But somebody's got to get the ball. There's the anytime touchdown scorer. Is it Miller and everybody else? Like, if the Saints score a touchdown, Adam, does it have to be a rushing touchdown? I think there's only one option there, right?
I wouldn't say it has to be, but that would be the primary focus. I mean, the guys that if I'm looking, here's the thing. And again, I was playing with Tom with builder options and like, all right, can you alt team totals? And that, what could that look? I didn't even want to throw in like the Saints over 6.5 points because I'm not sure the Saints actually do score a touchdown in this game.
Oh.
That is how little I believe in this. I don't think they'll get shut out, and I'm sure they probably will score 10 or something like that. But I just don't. I can't look at this offense missing again. Carr, Kamara, Shaheed, Hill, Olave, all these guys, I can't look at them and say, yeah, they're going to find the end zone, of course. And it's not like this is an elite defense on the other side from Green Bay, but it's good. It's good enough to contain a junk team. And so, I can't in my right mind invest in anybody on that Saints side to score a touchdown. But if you gun to my head, if you made me, I'd be looking at Kendre Miller. I'd be looking at Foster Moreau, Tom.
Vecchio.
I would be.
Let me jump in here real quick. I want to ask you this real fast. Buffalo was a gigantic favorite, same number, at home yesterday against New England. New England got 21 points against Buffalo at home with Buffalo.
Patriots offense is better than this.
Okay. It's a young quarterback, and it's better than the Saints, but it's not much better. Now,
and the Bills' defense is not as good as the Packers' defense.
And the Packers have a huge game this weekend, a look-ahead game. This is a look-ahead because they play the Vikings in a big game. I mean, Tom, does that factor into can they score? And if they do, is a receiving option an option?
Maybe receiving. I would play Jamal Williams at, what is it? The board said plus 470. Solely for the fact that I want to get that vulture touchdown. When everyone's expecting it to be Kendre Miller, I'm simply just going to play the number when they don't have viable options. And Jamal Williams was a good running back like years ago. So that's where I would go, just for the fun of it.
There is something else in the anytime touchdown market that we absolutely have to discuss. We're going to do so when we come on back. Much more on the Pack and the Saints as they come marching in to Lambeau Field.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
They just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's your Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills were notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Back with Tom and Dave. I'm Adam. We're getting you ready again for the Packers and the Saints. We were just talking about the anytime touchdown market. And if you looked at the board, and we'll show it to you again, there it is if you're watching along. Everyone is plus money, with the exception of one guy. No surprise, but maybe a little surprise in the number. Josh Jacobs is minus 300. When did Christian McCaffrey die? I know he's hurt, but when did he die and be reincarnated as Josh Jacobs for a minus 300 number? This is I get I get that he has 9 touchdowns, all rushing, by the way, in his last 5 games.
Right.
But my God, minus 300? I mean, this is, again, one of the things Tom and I talked about, Dave. Like, do you use – a lot of people are going to have Josh Jacobs as just a touchdown, anytime touchdown, as a parlay piece tonight at minus 300. Right. A lot of people are going to have it. And do I think he's going to score? I do. Do I think he'll have the first touchdown? Entirely possible. But just to devil's advocate this thing, are you going to tell me that this is really like a free square? We have to play this when Green Bay could very easily put up 21, 28 points, 3-4 touchdowns, and have all of those come courtesy of all those wide receivers and pass catchers that Tom mentioned before. There's absolutely a path that it's Jordan Love and company and not Josh Jacobs finding the end zone, isn't there?
Without a doubt.
Totally. Yeah. And if we flash that board again, the point that I always make about this is, like, when we start talking about anytime touchdowns, their team total sitting at what, 28.5? So if it's not Josh Jacobs and they are scoring 4 touchdowns, Reed is at plus 190. Like, everyone else is at plus money. And these are some big numbers that we're seeing there. So I do like one of those specific players for touchdown. We can get into that a little bit later once we start going position by position. But if it's not Josh Jacobs and you play, as we always say, Adam, like, oh, if you play like 2 of the 5 guys or 2 of the 4 guys, you come out on top when we're talking about, yardage for different players. If you play 2 of 4 players that are all at plus 195, plus 250 for touchdowns, and those 2 score, we're talking about a great day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. I used to call this the FU price, and it still applies. Adam, you're not the first one to say F on the network, but this is an FU price because the book says, you want to bet Josh Jacobs? That's fine. Everybody wants to bet Josh Jacobs. Here's the price. FU, lay it if you want, parlay it if you want, and it's a win because it's so inflated and so expensive. I don't know if it's even CMC territory, but this is, like that guy for the Ravens who just continues to score touchdowns every week. Yeah. We know it's going to happen. Decent. Right. That guy's pretty good. So you put it up, and I mean, I'm not saying the books are rooting for it, but it's not the worst thing in the world when a minus 300 happens. If it doesn't happen, though, whoo, now the world is open. Now you could, hope that I'd love to see Jordan Love sneak one in. What'd you call it? Touchdown vulture? That's a fantasy guy term. I like that. He'll get in there, take it away from Jacobs. Listen, that wouldn't be a bad deal for the books. If it wins, it's fine. It will keep people off. That's the purpose of the bet. Now, there's different value. First touchdown scorer. Adam, you said it. There's a plus price there, but it's so short compared to everyone else. Would you want that one?
No.
I would rather invest, like Tom mentioned, all those guys that were in the middle of the graphic before with the Green Bay logo next to them. I'd rather invest in multiple of those guys at plus money to score anytime versus one plus money plus 230 Josh Jacobs first touchdown. That, I mean, that's just, how do you want to handle your money, Tom?
I mean, how many times on the show have I said, do not lay minus odds on touchdowns? I've said that repeatedly. And going to plus 230 for a first touchdown prop? Are you kidding me? You could give me that money and I would put it on something. I wouldn't even put that money on a plus 230 touchdown prop. I would rather take the plus, what do you say it was, plus 300, Dave, plus 320, whatever it was, for a million touchdowns in this game. I'd rather put it on that than put a plus 230 for a first touchdown. Those are atrocious odds.
See, that's what the book wants you to do, though. And that's what the book
is happy. That was a hell of a lot more than plus 320. That was 320 to 1.
That was 320.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Not plus 320. Right. 320.
Right. You're going to the Caribbean or to Hawaii if you hit that. Forget about not just going to dinner.
I wouldn't be back to the halftime show.
Right. Yeah. No. Go on. That's it. I'll do the halftime show for you. If you bet that and you pick up 32,000, I'll do the halftime show for you, Vecchio. Happy holidays. Get a plane trip to somewhere warm. I heard it's pretty cold up there in Connecticut.
It's single digits.
So I want us to, before we get to our same game parlays, I want us to talk a little bit about Josh Jacobs in terms of the production on the field. Pass catcher, obviously, as a rusher, the combo. We've done Kendre Miller. Let's talk about the featured guy that everybody wants.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
It just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's the Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills were notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
We're chatting about Josh Jacobs, the anytime touchdown market in this Packers and Saints game, but Jacobs is going to be a focal point of everybody's parlays, straight plays. He's the dude. He is the guy that it seems like everyone can, quote unquote, reliably count on tonight. I know that injuries could screw everything up, I understand, but the game script, the weather conditions, that would seem to favor the run, but also just the strengths, weaknesses, whatever of these two teams. Let me give you some of this here, Dave. Jacobs, again, he has scored in 5 straight games, 9 touchdowns in that span, has 13 on the year. So that's the whole argument for him finding the end zone, all of that. The Saints, though, are sitting 20th in run defense. They are allowing the 6th most rushing yards per game. The Packers run the ball in all at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. We have already seen Jacobs go. He went 94 yards last week rushing. He also had 42 in the air. For those of you thinking about a rush receiving combo play, obviously, he's crossed the century mark 3 times already this year with a high of 151. All the way back early in the year in a game against the Colts. There have been some massive receiving games in this, with 74 against the Dolphins, 58 against the Bears, the 42 at Seattle, as I alluded to. So in terms of his props, it's a big number. You got to go north of 90 rushing yards. I'm looking at FanDuel, 92.5. That is not a small number. The receiving yardage, that's, more reasonable. That's sub 20. I think 16.5 is what I was looking at. But the rushing receiving combo, that is 110.5. How do you feel about Josh Jacobs?
You asking me or you asking Tom? Tom, how do you feel?
I'm asking
because I know
both of
how
you.
I feel. Tom, go first.
Josh Jacobs, essentially, as we were kind of alluding to, he's kind of like that free square tonight, which we've talked about on other shows. The touchdown is there. He is in my SGP. I'll put my hand up on that one. We'll get to it in a little bit, but he is in there. And seeing the production from him is what we should be expecting. At the end of the day, this may not be a great game. On the other hand, this is a very important game for the Packers. So we can kind of block out some of the noise and let's just keep it to basics. For the Packers, what are they going to do? They run the ball at the 3rd highest rate. They need to win this game. Well, they don't need to win this game, but they should be winning this game. It's important, playoff seeding, this, that, the other thing. So what is the most rational game plan for them? Let's do what works. Let's do what works against a bad defense, and let's give the ball to Josh Jacobs 20-plus times.
you know what football is? It's finding what works and sticking to it. I think Herman, Coach Boone said it during Remember the Titans, right? It's like Novocaine. Just give it time and it'll keep working. Okay. They're going to run the ball. And as you guys alluded to early, the weather outside is frightful. Oh, so delightful. Well, they're going to run in that weather. It's going to be one of those things. 12-3 straight up home teams went this weekend in the NFL. 11-4 against the spread. I don't know about the 14, and I don't know specifically about the rushing and receiving, but I will be surprised if he don't get 100 tonight. Like, that would be the number for me. I'd be like, look, you guys want to bet over Jacobs? Let's put this thing. I'd ask Vecchio. I'd ask Adam. I'll even ask Vinny, who's more excited about Manea going back to the Mets and getting a rotation solidified. Okay? But I'd ask you all, do you think he's going under or over 99.5? Most of you will say over. All right, that's the number. It's hard for the books to put it there because the bad guys and the rhombuses and the parallelograms will come in and bet under. Because is it a letdown game? Do we get a big lead? Is there any part of game script, Adam, that keeps him from not getting this number?
Probably not.
I think the only way it happens is if they're up, 3-4 touchdowns at halftime, and it's been mostly the passing. It's been mostly the passing game. Doesn't mean Jacobs isn't involved, but maybe a lot of that production is in the air. Maybe he's got 50 receiving yards and he has, 60 rushing or whatever. And there's just in that second half, they know they're going to clinch the playoff spot. Then you start to work in, Emmanuel Wilson and guys like that a little bit more. And you're just sort of bleeding clock. You don't want to risk injury, especially if the weather does stink to Jones or to Jacobs, pardon me. I think that's how it happens. But short of that, I'm prepared to sit in my seat and watch Josh Jacobs have, 60 rushing yards by the end of the first quarter because he breaks one off for 35. You know what I mean? I just think he's going to get off to a hot start, like Saquon over the weekend and like Taylor over the weekend and some of these and Gibbs and just not look back. I think he's going to have a huge game.
I was pretty concerned, or I was intrigued by his 19.5 rushing attempts, which we've talked about before. We put it at 19.5, you'll get the over. So if you put it at 20.5. So I saw it at 19.5 one place. I saw it at 21.5 another place. And, the 19.5 is like, he should be able to get there again when I'm talking about like a rational game plan for the Packers. Give the ball Josh Jacobs, control the clock, put up the points, win the game, clinch the spot, et cetera, et cetera. But as Adam said, like him getting to 60 yards, we have 2 passing touchdowns from Jordan Love, a defensive touchdown, a field goal, and all of a sudden they're up by so much that Josh Jacobs, he has 60 on the ground, 30 in the air, and it's like ultimately a really good game from him, but he actually doesn't hit the over because they're up by so much. So if you want him to have pushed towards 100, he either has to be super efficient, or the Saints team total might be super close at that point where they're actually being somewhat competent on offense. Not great, but competent at the lowest bar.
How about competent early? I got this one. You put this thought in my head, Adam, and I'm scrolling through this menu, and I go, Josh Jacobs, first quarter rushing yards. I don't know if either of you looked. Have either one of you looked at what that number is? What do you think that number is?
His number is 80, so it's 92 for the game. 92, it's probably
right.
It's probably somewhere in the low to mid 20s.
Okay, good guess, Adam. What do you think?
I was going to guess like 19.5. I was going to go just below 20.
Okay, so immediately my thought was 20.5 would have been my number based on the production, but now it's inflated because 92.5 divided by 4. So Vecchio's, you're thinking right. Adam, you were thinking right. It's 25.5 minus 110. Wow. So that's a pretty healthy number, but a good first quarter will get him there. Like you would think. So now you don't have to lay that
the run early.
Lay that stuff, right? This is what they're going to do.
I would love to know what that opened up at, because if it's 25 now, Josh Jacobs' number last night, I believe, was 87 or 88.5, depending on where you were looking for his total. Now it's up to 92, as Adam said. So it probably wasn't 25 first quarter last night. It was probably 22 or 23, right? If we're
21 and a half, most likely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
20,
most likely
I would
yeah.
love it at 20 or 21 and a half.
Of course.
Right.
Somebody going to shop that around. Now, do you think he's going to catch passes? Because the number rushing and receiving in the first quarter, which I don't know how many passes he's going to catch, but it's only 30 and a half. So that would be what, one catch for 5 yards? That would get him over with the 25? I don't know.
He's good in the passing game, but it's not necessarily their focus.
Not consistent.
Right. He's good when he catches the ball, if he needs to catch the ball. It's not like, oh, we're passing the ball, let's get it to Josh Jacobs kind of thing.
Right. No, I mean, to your point with the game log, and I'm going in reverse order. He had 4 receptions on as many targets last week. The game before that, which was, by the way, a high-scoring 34-31 game, he didn't have a single target, not one. The game before that, 4 targets, 4 catches. Game before that, now this was a lopsided 38-10 win against the Niners. He was only targeted once, didn't have a catch. So it's just totally unpredictable in terms of whether the Packers elect to use him that way.
Right.
Yeah, not tonight. I would say tonight is not the night to start to get involved with his receiving yards, which, if it means anything, the way last week went on Thursday, you should probably bet all of his receiving props over, because that's the way it's going to go.
All right. Well, something tells me there'll be some more Josh Jacobs talk among some of the other guys that we have mentioned, because when we come back, we are going to give you same game parlays. Tom has cooked something up for you, so have I. And as usual, Dave will tell you why he likes Tom's the best. We'll come on back. It's Pro Football Today on SportsGrid.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
Oh, they just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's the Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Back here, Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Let us get into same game parlays. Okay, well, I've got one for you. Tom's got one for you. Let's start with Tom. You've heard enough from me. What do we got, Vecchio?
SGP up at plus 401, using that free square on Josh Jacobs for that touchdown.
Well, okay.
Very simple. We've been over this. Josh Jacobs, 80-plus rushing yards as well. These things are obviously somewhat correlated. They're going to win the game. I'm not even adding the Packers' money line in there. It doesn't do anything for it. But the next two players I'm going to talk about specifically, Tucker Kraft, the tight end, and Christian Watson, the receiver. I do like these players specifically for straight bets. I spoke about it this morning on the early line with Ben and Donnie. We can add them in here. We'll get to when we do some, position by position. But I specifically like Kraft and Watson. Let's get to Watson first. Leads the team with a 17.6 ADOT, that's average depth of target, and leads the team with a 26% air yard share. Over the last 3 weeks alone, he has long receptions of 36, 59, and 46 yards. Not to mention earlier in the season when he had 60, 44, and 37 long receptions. He can get to or close to this prop in literally one catch. We look to the Saints secondary. They've allowed 2,430 receiving yards, specifically to wide receivers. That's the fifth most in the league. They've also allowed 12 receptions of at least 20 yards in the last 5 weeks alone. I know that there's some weather tonight. I get that. The weather outside is frightful. We all understand that. But Christian Watson is still a good receiver who does have that deep ball potential. So when we get to the receiver head-to-head, I do like the over on his yards, and I do like the over on his longest reception. This is something he can get done. And then I like Tucker Kraft just generally getting to a decent amount of yards. He's been at 34 yards or more in 6 out of the last 8 games. We'll talk about his touchdown prop when we get to the tight ends.
Okay, my turn. Believe it or not, Dave and Tom, I didn't go as crazy with this one. I just went with something that I like. It is it's very correlated, so the number is not as inflated as I would love it to be, but let's show the people. Right. You are getting on FanDuel a basically a little bit more than a 3-1. We're looking at, I think it was plus 336. There we go. There we go. I believe in the Packers. I think the Packers are going to rout in this one. Did you know Green Bay has covered in 4 straight games as a 10-plus point favorite? Now, granted, the last opportunity was in 2022, and Aaron Rodgers was still the quarterback, but let's ignore that. Packers, huge favorite. I'll take it just inside the 2 touchdowns to 13.5 and say that Green Bay gets the job done. Honestly, if we were doing like it, love it, leave it, I'd be telling you Green Bay wins this thing by like 28 points. I'd just be all up the thing up. All right, but I'm not going to go extra, Dave. We're taking Green Bay minus 13.5. Now, is it going to happen? Couple of players. Jordan Love. I'm going to play it a little modest with him. 225 passing. That's just a little bit below his prop tonight of low 230s. Again, a bevy of pass-catching options on the Green Bay side, obviously. I think any number of them have the potential to go off. I just don't singularly trust any of them, but I trust Jordan Love to get them the ball. So I'm going to take him 225-plus passing. The other one, Josh Jacobs. Again, you see the 100-plus rushing and receiving combo and go, whoa, 100-plus? But listen, that's actually a little bit below the prop. We just talked about it. 110. 110 and change is the number for Josh Jacobs if you played that line straight. I'm taking it just below that to 100 because I do think there is an avenue where maybe Jacobs has 70 rushing, goes well below his line, but he has 50 in the air or something like that. We've seen it multiple times this year. I think that is altogether possible. I am just looking for him to be involved, heavily involved in the offense, 100-plus rushing, receiving combined. So put that with Love and Green Bay to absolutely smash at home and clinch that playoff spot, plus 336, Dave, on FanDuel. Who do you like better here at the holiday season?
Wow. That was outstanding. And I mean, I got to tell you, this is like the second year in the last 100 that Christmas and Hanukkah start on the same day. And
sure do, yeah.
It's a Festivus for the rest of us, and it's a Festivus for you, Adam Kaufman. You've done it. You got the same game parlay tonight for you. I really think this one will be very surprising to me if it doesn't come in. Vecchio, I like yours, but we have to pick. And I mean, it's the holiday season. We got to give the kid with the fancy sweater, and the lights and all that other stuff. Adam, you win. I really, really like yours. If it doesn't win, Adam, which one are you whining and venting about after the show tonight. Because Vecchio likes to be right.
Sure.
We've established this, that Tom just likes to be right. You like to be right. As men, we all like to be right. I mean, in any relationship, you like to be right more than you're wrong. As you get older, you find out, you know what? You don't have to be right all the time. Just eat it sometimes. Adam, which one are you most worried about?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that in a couple of different ways. The one that I would be most angry about, the one that I'd be talking to myself about after, would be Green Bay not covering the number, because I just think the Packers are that much better tonight versus the Saints personnel. But the one I'm most worried about is not that one. The one I'm most worried about is Jacobs and whether or not he does get to the century mark, because at the end of the day, it's a big number, Dave. 100 yards, rushing, receiving combined is a big flipping number.
Yeah. Tom, which one are you worried about on yours? Because yours looks pretty solid, not going to lie. I don't know which one gets you, one of those ones on the bottom, I think.
Yeah,
maybe.
It is. And this is part of it where, I kind of led with this at the beginning. Like, they have a number of great options. Kraft, Watson, Reed, Dobbs, Jacobs coming in the backfield, whatever it might be. Like, so not every player is going to hit the overs on their props. Like, not everyone's going to do it. So it would be Jacobs scores, he hits the yards, and one of the two receivers goes over, but the other one doesn't.
Right. The receivers.
Yeah.
That's the hard
part. How do we, before we hit the break, because we haven't spent a lot of time on the quarterbacks, Jordan Love in particular. I've seen a lot of people on under Tom 19.5 pass completions for Jordan Love. Do you think Jacobs is just so involved that Love maybe isn't slinging it all that much tonight?
He throws it, but is effective. But, he doesn't need to hit 20 because they are leading and he's efficient rather than volume-based. So I think
who knows what throwing in the snow and the rain looks like. Ball could be slipping right out of his hands. More on the Packers and Saints on the other side.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500. There's
it just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's the Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, we were just talking about Jordan Love. Let's talk more about Jordan Love and that guy on the other side, Spencer Rattler. And we've spent a little bit of time on Rattler. The props, and you're looking at them, incredibly different. I mean, you have a 50-ish yard difference. I'm looking at right now on FanDuel, the numbers a little bit different than that. Rattler up to 183.5, Love at 233.5. That is a 50-yard discrepancy. I asked Vecchio this earlier, Dave. I want your opinion. The only thing that worries me about Rattler, well, I guess in terms of the full 183.5 or 177.5 or wherever you play it, I guess I'm a little worried just because of, who he has to throw the ball to. But what really worries me is what if he gets benched? I mean, we have seen him effectively split time each of the last couple of games with Jake Haener. I realize that Rattler looks like the better QB. He's the more explosive QB. He's, led some exciting drives and moments and all of that, but he has never had this weak a group around him in his young NFL career than what he is going to have tonight. And if this thing gets incredibly ugly, goes south on him, and they are down, 25 points in the third quarter, LaFleur isn't worried about playing with these guys' heads. Who's to say he doesn't pull them and just throw Haener back out there and see if he can spark a rally?
Yeah. Vecchio, take that. I got to reset my screen. Take it.
It's tough. It's certainly tough because we have seen one quarterback start, the other one come in. Like you said, I would agree that Rattler is the better quarterback, and we have seen better, at least upside from him in terms of the actual offense overall. But granted, like you said, they've had Alvin Kamara prior to this, right? So they actually were a viable offense. They had MVS. They were looking good at times. And, even if he had to throw the ball or dump it off to Alvin Kamara, you can pick up yards because Kamara is so good. And the lack of talent around him is vastly different compared to what we saw in the past few weeks. So there is a route to, him falling under. But at that point, you should be playing things in correlation with that, which I would say would be the Saints team total under. Because if they're legitimately not scoring and he's not picking up yards, that means that they're not scoring. So I would be all in on that one side of things. If you think he can get benched, then it's because they're not scoring. So then I would be looking to play team total unders at that point. But it is realistic. It's the same conversation with the Giants. Is it going to be Drew Lock? He's going to continue to throw pick sixes. Why not just throw Tommy DeVito in there? Why not just play the unders on DTR for the Browns? Because if he sucks and Winston can come in and be better, we should just be playing the unders every single week. So it is viable. It's just, do you want to do that?
Dave? No, Dave. All right. We'll get Dave back here. Just working with a quick tech issue. So what about Jordan Love on the other side? We were talking about the, completions, how much he's going to throw it, and what the game script, all of that. Do you, as much as you've talked about maybe wanting to invest in this guy, that guy, in terms of his sort of unpredictable Rolodex of pass catching options, in terms of Love just effectively getting them the ball, 233.5 is generally a very low number. It's just, in this game with this weather, does it feel efficient to you?
It's pushing that point where if we could get it in the mid 220s, I would say if we could in an ideal circumstance, I think that'd be a little bit better compared to him essentially pushing it 240 or 250 yards. I'm not sure if he needs to do that. And this is kind of what the spread is indicating. Does he need to be passing at that high volume? Will we just be seeing Josh Jacobs? So I think it is tough. We could, I would say, use Love in alt capacity. If you're building it into an SGP, you could take him at 175 plus or 200 plus. I think that's a little more reasonable. I think it's a touch high. It's what it comes down to.
Look at the
Dave,
attempts,
you've bellowed your way back onto the show. What do you got?
Look at the attempts, look at the completions, and that'll kind of tell you the story. If the Packers roll, like Adam's been talking about, an alt minus 17.5, minus 20.5, he ain't going to have to throw nearly as much. So that's the danger of the whole thing. The Rattler number is interesting because you said, what if he gets benched? What if he gets benched? What if he gets hurt? I have no idea what to do in that situation. And I can tell you that from a guy who sat in a book. That's the worst nightmare. That's where you in game and you go, okay, now we really go after it. Because Vecchio's plan of waiting for the Saints to score first, everybody's waiting for that. They pounce and they keep coming. It's a waterfall of bets if Rattler gets knocked out of the game or gets benched. It's ugly. I don't want to see that. I got a bet for you guys after the break, by the way. Stay ready.
Yeah,
'cause I got something to ask you.
I'll mention this too. I don't think this is going to happen, but if it gets out of hand, would anyone be that shocked if Malik Willis is playing the second half of the fourth quarter? I wouldn't.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
They just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
And you're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's the Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, back here, Pro Football Today with Vecchio and Sharapan. And Dave, just as we were heading to break, you said, hey, I got a bet I want to throw you guys. Well, it's the last segment we got here before Packers Saints. What do you have?
All this talk about the Packers and all this scoring they're going to do and trying to figure out who's going to score it. All right, laying this big number, laying this big juice, all these other things. If we think the Packers are going to score, let alone cover, they're probably going to score a lot. The question is this: are they going to score in all four quarters? Do you think they score? Not all that says is to score. Now that means, as far as I'm concerned, without checking the fine print, that means a field goal and or a touchdown, right? Does that include a safety as well? I don't know the particulars, but when I see to score in all four quarters and it's only minus 105, Vecchio. Does that make the Vecchio card? Are they going to score? Will there be a zero for the Packers in one of the four quarters tonight?
There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be, because if they don't score, does that open up the possibility that the Saints will be covering 14.5? That's what my mind immediately goes to, that they would have a chance to cover, that they're up by so much in the fourth quarter, as Adam alluded to, that the Saints have some garbage time touchdown, right? And they backdoor it, and the Packers just aren't pushing things down the field because they don't need to, because they're up by 24 some odd points at the start of the fourth quarter, and Jordan Love doesn't play a single snap in the fourth, and Malik Willis comes in. There's a chance that it happens.
Adam, Malik Willis comes in and leads them to a touchdown drive in the fourth quarter. You hinted at it. Is there any chance? No, I mean, it's only minus 105. This could go in your builder.
No, listen, here's the only reason. I mean, that in and of itself is a builder if it's minus 105.
Yeah.
The only reason that I don't want to play that is because the weather in this game is such a kind of non-factor. And if the offenses look a little sluggish and you don't get that mistake, particularly on the Saints side, that leads to a Green Bay defensive touchdown or special teams touchdown, whatever, which I do think we haven't even really talked about that. I think that is very, very live that you could get a defensive touchdown in this game. And personally, as a Packers owner in season-long fantasy football playoffs, I'm rooting for that tonight. But I think that is entirely a possibility. I wouldn't want to invest in the team to score in every single quarter because I think the weather could prevent it. And you get that one random goose egg and points in the other 3 quarters, and then, you lose your bet. You're just ticked off at the end of the night. We haven't spent a lot of time, guys, before we do wrap up on the total. 43.5, 44. Most people, I feel like, are on the under simply because of the weather. I am on the under. It's not one of my bigger plays, but it is where I am invested. Dave, how do you see this one?
I think it's a perfect number. The 43 is strong. It's 43, 41, and 39 as far as totals go in the NFL in the past. Those 3 numbers always seem to fall right around that number. I think this is just snare drum tight, little drummer boy. It's playing. I don't really feel strong about it either way. I don't even want to give you an answer. If I was forced to, if I got to come up with something, I'd say under as well. But again, you bet the under and all these things happen. And I talk about the Packers scoring in every quarter. I think that's a bet. I mean, you want a bet from me? There it is. I think we got to ask Vecchio for your best bets, Tom, before we get out of here. I saw those things ready in the back.
Yeah.
What do you got? Yeah.
3 straights and a touchdown. And that would be Kraft touchdown at plus 250. He leads the team with a 22% red zone target share. It's actually 22.02, I think, if we're being exact. Again, he's at 34 yards or more in 6 out of the last 8 games. I like this matchup. We see the Saints, they're just middle of the road when it comes to defending tight ends in terms of yards allowed. And then I like Christian Watson. Yeah, there's a little bit of weather concern, but if we're expecting Jordan Love to maybe not have 250 yards, but he can get close to 200, some of these receivers are going to cash in because, as I described, the Saints, they've allowed at least, 12 receptions of at least 20 yards in the last 5 weeks alone. There is an opportunity for Watson, who does play that downfield role, to break off these catches of 36, 59, 46, 60, 44 yards, as we've seen from him this season. So this is a chance he gets it done in two catches, maybe even 1 catch. And then Kraft at plus 250 would be great, considering their team total is sitting at 28.5. It's mostly a play on the number, but I do like his usage overall.
Dave, normally in this segment, it's your back to the futures, my friend. And we'd be looking, ahead. We have 2 weeks left in the regular season after tonight, obviously. We fully expect that the Packers are going to clinch their playoff spot. And so right now, as things stand in the AFC, you have the Chargers and Broncos, they're sitting in the 6, 7 seeds in the conference, have yet to clinch their playoff seeds, but in all likelihood they're going, although the Colts, Dolphins, Bengals all sitting at 7 and 8 and mathematically still in the picture. Over in the NFC, top 5 have clinched. Then you have the Packers, who should tonight, Commanders, who have not quite yet, with the Buccaneers, and Seahawks technically still alive at 8 and 7. Here's my question. Do any of these 5 teams that are on the outside looking in, but still mathematically in the picture, actually get into the picture by the time we have closed week 18?
There's maybe talk of this Bengals team being in there, getting in, finding their way into the playoffs. And a lot of people I know looking at that price going, boy, just give them a shot, get them in. Other than that, no, I don't think so. I mean, the Dolphins is a nice story. Let's forget about it. The Colts are just extending their stay in the hunt category. I mean, they get to go play the Giants, who they should win, a dome team outside in the Meadowlands, or, MetLife, whatever they're calling it now, they should win. So they'll stay around for another week. But, Adam, I mean, there's going to be a lot of gifts both under the tree, in the stockings, after people light the menorah and all this other stuff. I wouldn't get them a future ticket on them. I wouldn't do it. That would be more of a gag gift. I don't think so. Do you have best bets for tonight, Adam, that we need to get up, or the graphic? Do you have anything for the people?
Not on a graphic, but I'll holler some of them out. I do. Well, again, I like the SGP if you're just looking for a combination of things that I gave out earlier, I do believe in mine. I hope it hits. I hope Tom's hits as well. I hope everybody's making money here on this show. But in terms of just straight plays, you don't necessarily need to parlay everything. If you can still get the Packers at 14 as you can at some places, I do like Green Bay to cover, obviously. I would skew toward the under. I would go over on Josh Jacobs and his receiving yards combo, because even though I do think he probably hits both, I'm most confident in them hitting together versus specifically the rushing or specifically the receiving. And I do think that the Kendre Miller over 2.5 receptions is a strong look. I do agree with that, just because I think these dump offs
for that. Actually,
I think these dump offs to Miller are likely. I know that I don't think he has any catches in the last few games, but remember, Kamara was still a focal point within that offense. He's gone. He's out of the picture. He's not available tonight. And so Miller is going to be largely used in that role. Maybe Jamal Williams as well, but I think that Miller is going to be involved there, Dave.
All right, tighten this up. We only got a couple minutes, maybe a minute and 30 left. Vinny will tell us in a second. Christmas Day, we won't be together. We'll be thinking of you, and we'll, thank everybody for watching the show and, being a part of this the whole way along. But we got to give someone something for Christmas, because we're going to reconvene on Thursday for the Bears and the Seahawks. Give me the 2-team parlay on Christmas. Just money line. I'll go first. It's nighttime in Pittsburgh behind me. It'll be daytime in Pittsburgh. The Steelers are beating the Chiefs. I've been saying it for weeks. Kansas City ain't going to Pittsburgh on Christmas Day and win it. Baltimore is going to win in Houston, though. One home team, one road team. That's my Christmas Day moneyline parlay. Vecchio, what do you think? What do you like?
I certainly don't mind that. The Chiefs' luck has to run out at some point, at least before the regular season ends, and then people start to doubt them and then favor the Bills. So you might actually want to buy in on the Chiefs after they lose on Christmas.
Yeah, I do think the Ravens are going to win. I have more conviction in that one than I do the other. I'll just play devil's advocate against Dave anyway, and I'll go with the Chiefs. Why not?
Christmas!
Sure! All right, thanks to Tommy, to Vinny, everyone behind the scenes, for Tom, for Dave.
The holidays craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
They just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
And you're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's a Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
This is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashed.
Only on Sports.